What you eating, bro? A banana?
I'm eating a banana. Are we already recording?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But James edits these, so like you can
I can
feel free to keep eating.
No, you have banana time. No rush on your banana.
Yeah. Before we get started, we should probably say, for the very first time ever on the Mulaney Rewatch Pod, we have a special guest. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Abhishek Singh. What,
John Mulaney.
Don, give yourself a quick intro to the audience.
I am the third smallest but necessary member of Half-Pint. I am like the.
You think you're the smallest member?
Not physically. I am the most dominant size force. Yes, I am visually big, but I am the matchbook you stick under a wobbly table that gives it a little bit of stability.
Wow, that's a beautiful self-description. Right. Yeah, you are the matchbook.
Yeah, you're the matchbook.
We need you to ignite the fires that
right.
become death tolls of thousands.
When 50% of the crew moves to the south, we need George.
Abhishek, what did you know about the television sitcom Mulaney prior to this episode?
I had seen about the first 10 minutes of the pilot episode. Okay. I watched it, and as a fan of John Mulaney, I saw him do the best bit from the top part, but neutered, and that put a bad taste in my mouth. And then immediately launch into one of the best bits in New in Town and completely destroy it, like completely take all the fucking. It was a lesser product immediately, and I checked out then. Little did I, and then I heard bits and pieces from you guys of things that happened in the show over the years, and I decided to stay far away until this moment. And now, well, I've seen episode 6 of this show many times at this point, and
we didn't make him do that, by the way. We didn't say he had to rewatch it. That was a decision on his.
It did that. It compelled me. It's a real fucking like deep knot of psychosis. It's fucking like this has nothing to do with patriotism at all.
I know. All right. So let's jump into the episode. So it's called Patriot Games, which clearly my favorite political comedy show took its title from it. Of course, I'm referring to that one with Cal Penn about climate change. All right. So there's
just bombing in the Zoom call, aren't you?
You've seen the first 5 episodes of this, like you know what to expect.
Yeah.
Something I thought was interesting in the opening stand-up bit. So the opening stand-up bit is, I think, a piece of original material that is not on any of his albums or hours, as far as I could tell. It's about how he would be embarrassed if someone came to see him fight in the Civil War. But there's an interesting thing is, so the opening line he says is, I was watching a documentary about the Civil War because I have a low sex drive, which is the same bit as he later did in an SNL monologue where he said, I was watching this old movie on Turner Classic Movies because I was not an athletic child. Much stronger joke. And so I thought we're seeing, I think this is right now for me most interesting because we're seeing like iterations of Mulaney as a stand-up that I haven't before. And you can see how he evolved and got a lot better, which is the opposite of what is happening on the television show.
Yes.
There's no evidence of quality increasing. But anyways, so we get back.
I like that opening bit. I like it more. I think it because it was something I haven't seen before. And my thought was like, John does like self-deprecation like no one else because he's not like fat or ugly or bald. So he has to get these like deep, eloquent.
What are 3 other things about him? But yeah, I mean, the entire episode, not to get as like, let's take a 30,000 feet further. It's like, it's about John technically feeling unpatriotic for never having served in the military, which is like I wrote here, like this is a huge Obama still president alert, like this is very much we're not the military is good and perfect and not that
we've done neither but it launches off with just a trigger of a psychosis. The second somebody claps for someone that's not him, he immediately tries to pervert it to make it about himself. And when he does not succeed, it rips apart the fabric of his universe for however long this episode is supposed to take place over.
Yes, 7 years. But so another thing is both of these are kind of Louis bits. The thing about giving up your seat in first class to a military guy. That was a bit from Live at the Beacon. It's like, I always think about doing that. And this is reenacting his, and that came before this. And then the other idea of, the bit, I think he did it on SNL about like an old lady falling over and then you have to like go help them. And you're like in a game of decency chicken is the Louis joke. And so that's similar to this as well about like, oh man, should I, whatever. But it's cool how like the opening thing is like, not cool, but it's interesting how it's like another, probably the most famous comedian at the time has like pretty well-tread bits about this exact thing, that you're reenacting. And so he's on a plane flying back from Tehran, as Jane says. She really hits the H. From an Iranian wedding, which again, like, this is how, I guess they've known each other for 8 years, but like that they're going to their family's weddings in a different country. Like, that's okay, cool. I didn't realize you guys were like, I thought you met yesterday, based off of the general discomfort that you all seem to have around each other.
These people seem like they've never rehearsed and they've never met before.
Yeah.
But I get the feeling that John and Nassim's character, what's Nassim's name? Jane? Like, are they supposed to be into each other?
No. Okay. So there is this is great. It's great. We have to now we're using
this is Rob who is
well, yeah. So to answer your question, but there was an episode before this where John was like, Jane never likes any of my girlfriends, and then it's like, oh, does that mean that she's into me? And then she's like, John, I'm not into you, but you're my backup. That's the whole episode. I described it in 2 sentences, and it's thinner than that when you watch it.
Oh yeah,
it was like 30 minutes long.
Perfect word. It's so thin, so slight that it's like anti-humanist. Like it's
moralistically bad.
No, genuinely, because it's made and written for people that have no real interest or connection to anything except the idea of comedy, but still look down on comedy as something beneath them and that they've mastered. Like it's
well, yeah. I think the whole point of this that I got to is that like there's no voice behind this. It's not even like they're failing at accurately expressing a voice. I don't know what the voice is. Like, did you guys see the Seinfeld or the clip of the Seinfeld writer that I sent? We could play it here, but basically what it was is it was one of the writers who was saying this is like it worked like any like no other TV show where the writer's room is like you would pitch an idea and they'd be like, okay, go write it, rather than like you kind of have like a general structure and then you have like story beats and then maybe specific joke ideas, and then Jerry and Larry would like oftentimes like rewrite it from the ground up. But I get the sense that there's something similar is going on here, because I think maybe they just said this episode is about John feeling unpatriotic or like whatever, he's anxious. And then a guy would just go, because these are all his friends. The guy who wrote this episode, the thing he did after Mulaney was canceled was create Superstore, which is a sitcom that let on for like 7 years and then went on to create 2 more very successful shows. Like this, everyone in the writers group here is very talented and like has like a huge comedic pedigree, but it just seemed like they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. So they were just writing something.
A huge problem with the episode in general, and I assume for the entire show, is just this too many cooks thing where there are several threads in the show and they all seem like they fit into the episode, but they're all fighting against each other because the patriotism, the idea of it first comes in like into John's mind when he's arguing with Nassim, right? About
he's
arguing with Jane about which one of them is more patriotic, which is the setup of a sitcom episode. They're going to figure out which between the two of them who's more patriotic. They're going to do patriotic acts. But also there's the inherent competition of Motif and John going like who can do the better auditioning for the USO.
Yeah.
Which is its own which is it? Is it patriotism there or
who's the better stand-up? Yeah.
It's neither.
Yeah, it's neither thing.
It's very the whole show is very unfocused. This episode specifically, where it introduces all these different weird plots, this is like the most glaring episode so far. Like I thought last week's episode, which was like Father Trey, and he like lied. Like last week's episode was about John lying to his mom about going to church, and so then his mom visits him, and then she's like, let's go to church to meet that pastor you always tell me about. And then John's like, I've been lying. So like that one was much more coherent because it's all pretty much about that. And then the side plot almost has nothing to do with it. But this tries to take almost 3 different plot points and like make them all intertwined, which like it's just a series of scenes that are like oddly patriotic. It's very weird. The patriotism in it is very weird, and I don't think that like John truly understands. Like, even I know you keep saying Obama, but it's like even Obama's America. Like,
Yeah, I know.
what do they think a veteran is?
Die in war, like
Yeah.
right. John doesn't do anything other than the military. Like, he doesn't see it as something noble. He doesn't see it as something bad. He sees it as something that garners attention for people, and nothing.
Yeah, right, exactly. He doesn't even think about the punchline of the entire episode is like, oh no, we're going to Afghanistan, and it's like of course I guess you'd be scared of that, but it's also like you're not fighting there, like you're just going to a military base in another country.
I have to imagine when John and Martin Short get to Afghanistan, it's like that scene in Apocalypse Now where they're like holding onto the lady's legs as they're getting airlifted out of there. Like, no, like, ooh, sexy John. He's got a feminine physique. I don't know. I also like airplanes on sitcoms. Like, airplane sets are always so funny to me because there's like so much room and everyone's just stretched out.
It's not like how like this isn't like a tiny flight out of like small town Illinois. This is an international flight, and for some reason first class and like economy is all in one like 6x6 space with no curtain in between.
The same size.
Yeah.
Yes.
First class and economy.
Which is crazy because like Friends had a ton of episodes where they went, just to name another multicam sitcom, had a ton of episodes where they took planes and took flights and it looked normal. Like, why did they do it like this? This was directed, this is the 9th time I've said this. This was directed by the guy who directed all of Seinfeld. So it was a competent multi-camera sitcom director. Why was any of this done like this?
I don't know. I thought it was like they're just speaking full volume on a plane. Like, at least in other shows, they're kind of like talking to each other. They're just like like if you hear me speaking full volume on a plane, I'm saying the Hail Mary as the plane explodes into the ground. This is just such a weird show, man. I don't know how to explain any of this stuff.
I have so many things written down.
Yeah. I have like 3 pages. Yeah. Okay. So they get back to their apartment and they bring along the Marine who was on the previous flight that John feels guilty about not giving a seat up to, because now he and Jane are going to go on a date. And I don't think that this is was in the script or even intentional, but when Jane is like, we're going for a drink, you can almost see like a bit of like John acting uncomfortable there, which is the best acting that he's done maybe in his life, just the idea of like, oh, this female friend who I don't know if I have feelings for is going on a date with someone like that. I'm like, I know that look, and I'm positive that wasn't in the screenplay.
I think the finest acting John Mulaney has ever done is spraying Febreze in a wide shot in The Bear. It's just Jeremy Allen is sitting on and he's crashing on John's couch, and John walks in and he's like, fuck it.
So then they decide to so John's like, John and Motif are like, let's audition for the USO because that's a way to be patriotic. And then here's another interesting thing in terms of like stand-up evolution. The bit that John auditions with is one of the first stand-up jokes that John Mulaney, the comedian, actually wrote and did on stage. Yeah, which I think is a solid bit, especially considering when he was probably like 19 when he did it. But it speaks to the overall issue with the show and the lack of a voice behind it is as an audience member, I don't know whether or not it's supposed to be funny in universe, right? Like, it's a joke, like he's bombing, obviously. But then when Motif goes up and just says random stuff and kills, like, am I supposed to be like, this is unfair, John was funny? Or am I supposed to be like, oh, John,
they both go up and do hack broad, like, kind of crowd pleasy shit that would be stupid to do to one person.
Yeah.
But the only difference is that, like, John's
Motif is black.
Right, Motif is black.
Yeah,
so that's like separately from but in a similar vein to the military thing, this scene is really just about John wishing like being jealous of black people for being cooler than him. Like it's
being jealous of everyone for being cooler than him because
that's
jealous of black people. Yeah. And then there's a third plot line, which is then he goes and he has to prove that he's funny in front of a gruff older man. So it's again, it's like, the Louis episode where he's making fun of David Lynch or whatever. Mm-hmm. So a lot of Louis stuff in this because they're that's like season 2. It's Duckling. I don't know. I was thinking about his stand up in the show a lot during this episode, which is
it is what a modern it set the mold for modern stand up comedian making a show, a vehicle for themselves where they can.
But it doesn't. But Mulaney is like aggressively not doing that. Yeah.
When John does stand up, in the office. It reminded me of that time me and Aditya had to go to Asylum NYC. And because doing stand-up, if you remove the microphone and like I've done stand-up for 2 people in a crowd, but if you just remove any like other mysticism that it's a show,
for the thing,
like they didn't give us a mic, we had to audition, and so like I just kind of put my mic hand in my pocket and I just was like gesture with the other one.
And you just threw it, yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't laugh at all. Like they just look at you, and sometimes like a guy will smile, and I'm like, "Are you smiling because I'm doing so poorly?" Or like, "Keep going," or are you like it was baffling.
It's like the Llewyn Davis scene with the F. Murray.
Yeah. I don't see a lot of money here, and there wasn't.
Also, speaking of Llewyn Davis, the fact that like this like military man has to crash on a couch somewhere, it reminds me of that character that's like
in Llewyn,
like yeah, it's like Llewyn, you can't stay on our couch. This other singer that's in the military has to stay here. Like, why is this guy going to New York City if he doesn't have a place to stay?
No, he does have a place to stay. He just went back to their place to date Jane, and then remember he went to
VFW.
He's
staying at the VFW, but they don't allow dogs there. That's the whole thing.
No.
Right.
He's going to that afterwards. He lives in New York. He does live in New York. The only reason he came back to their apartment in the first scene is because he and Jane are going on a date.
Oh, this is something. Oh, okay. So then they won't put up. Then they just won't put up the dog with the military people, like
He's going on a second trip. Yeah, and on the second trip, the dog can go with him.
Gotcha. He's okay.
Yeah. He lives in.
Why would you be that
complicated? All of it there? I don't know.
Like this is all like spit. This exposition was spit in between terrible bits. Like it was
And the exposition, I write it every episode, but I'm like, the exposition is so bad. It's so bad. Like, wow, Jane, I can't believe we're coming back to a family's wedding. Like, why do you even need to say that? Why do you need to be going anywhere? You know, just be like, I'm Iranian. You know?
Yes. I mean, speaking of that. Like as the episode goes along, the self-hating like Muslim bits are like they get kind of like icky and egregious.
Right.
Like by the end, like the last one with fucking like which is pretending to be Hispanic in public.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, this is I actually have a friend who is half Arabic and has been dating a Hispanic guy and has started telling people initially as a joke that she's like a Latina, and I'm like, you don't want to do this because I can see this becoming your personality.
You can't. Yeah, Hilaria Baldwin. That's how you do it.
Right.
You feel like a loser, and then you're like, I want to be cool, and then you make your.
I mean, it's interesting how that is like the connecting through line is like I want to be cool for all of it, but they think it's about patriotism. It's like an A to C improv game of like, what am I thinking? It's like someone. It's like you say it's like I forgot to I didn't give my seat up to someone. And then someone else says like, yeah, and my boyfriend has a dog. And then at the same time you go patriotism. And you're like, how did you get there? But that's the name of the episode, you know?
I like when the military guy like drill sergeants John,
right,
and you can like feel it coming from like a mile away. You're like, oh, they're about to do a little military bit, and then John does again
the worst acting of his
just horrible acting,
horrendous inability to emote anything,
and also just even from the perspective of John as a character, which is he's not a character, he's a vehicle, he is a robotic vehicle for bits of varying quality.
Yeah,
so he just left. Motif got it. He didn't. Why does he give a shit what someone in the military thinks of it? Why not just get help from Motif? Like,
right, yeah. Right, exactly. Because it's get it from the other stand-up comedian.
Who as a stand-up would ever ask the audience what they think is funny?
Or like a specific demographic. Yeah. You're also not performing, or you're not auditioning in front of like a serviceman, you know? You're auditioning in front of Booker, whoever the Booker is, which is like an administrative official of the military, who is like some gruff dude. So just be like, yeah, exactly. I don't know. None of it makes sense. It was similar to the doula scene from episode 2 or 3. Do you remember that one? Episode 2, where they they pretend that giving birth, or no, they're installing an air conditioning unit, and then the doula walks them through it, and the joke is like, oh, it's like a woman in labor. And this is similar, where it's like, it's a guy, instead of talking about stand-up, it's a guy acting like he's in the military. But in both cases, because none of the actors are committing, it just is disgusting and doesn't work at all. Like, you're just like, it's like watching bad improv. Like, I felt like I was like cringing at it.
did the army pay for this episode?
I know, right?
Like, it feels like when you're playing Call of Duty and like the story missions are like, wow, that's the coolest guy in the world. He's the army. And then it's like when you're watching like the NFL and the jets fly over. And I'm like, this just feels like the military like paid them about $500,000 to make a cool guys are in the military thing.
Do you think they made no money on this show? Like they had no budget for this show and they had to do stuff like that? Because I get the sense sometimes that they had nothing to work with.
Yeah. No, they had very little. I'm sure.
This is a psyop. This is a psyop trying unsuccessful psyop.
Oh, we forgot. So there's a third subplot in this episode, which is about how Lou Cannon, I can't even remember his last name. Lou Cannon. It's initially implied that he was in Vietnam and shot a friend of his. And that's somehow played for laughs, but the initial bit is just dark. And then it's revealed that he shot a friend of his with a t-shirt cannon during an improv
Okay,
bit.
so I don't know if you guys will feel the same way about this, but this was my favorite shit in the episode. I
Hated it. I thought it was the worst part. I couldn't stand it.
I know you'd hate it, but I love that bit. I liked it more when it was broad. And it was just I think it was just because it was visually distinct.
Right.
It was, and Martin Short is the best at playing the tone of, like, Martin Short can supply a tone when there is one absent. You know what I mean? Like, that is why I gravitated towards him. He's good, a sketch actor, and these are just sketch premises, thinly sketched, like stitched together and thrown at you. Like, it's not. Sketch is the tool.
And he's the best in the entire show. But you're right, because I think we talked about that before, about how like you need a kind of broad acting style to facilitate both the multicam nature of the show and just what the elements that the show is working with. But the female lead of the show was also on Saturday Night Live. Why is she not able to do that?
Why? She's almost as bad as John sometimes.
Yeah, I know. It's baffling.
Oh, what's her line? She's like, oh, wow, the words every girl wants to hear.
Yeah.
Not a stand-up comedian. Why do you hate comedians so much?
This is another thing. This is another insecure thing where I'm like, look, I'm not going to pretend that being a stand-up is like the coolest chick magnet in the world. But you know who actually thinks women hate stand-ups more than women? Male stand-up comedians. They're like, man, I hate, like, I'm so annoying. It's like, you're annoying because you're talking about that, not because you do an open mic occasionally, you know? It was so clearly like written in by like, I think it's another, John thing of like, yeah, and she hates all my female friends hate. That's why I didn't get to have sex with any of them because of my stand-up career.
Because I'm lame as stand-up unless I'm genius, unless I'm George Carlin, then I'm God. But
maybe it was the extensive cocaine use that turned the women off, John.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
The Martin going to Vietnam bit.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the It's Always Sunny bit where where Frank goes to Vietnam after Vietnam. Like he's like, I was not. It's the same. Like they do the same punchline of like it was the wrong year. You know? Yeah. It's
an easy joke, but I don't mind it. But the fact that you brought up Sunny is like there's a whole. This is a thing that this show runs into a lot. The Seinfeld Sunny spectrum, right? Both shows where the characters are insane and will do morally questionable things. But in one instance, it's much crazier and broader, and you know what the tone of the show is. Whereas Seinfeld, it's almost like it kind of like wants to slip in the idea of like it's very observational, very relatable. You're like, oh, this is like me and my friends, and then it gets like it escalates to a point of like insanity. But there's no grounding of any kind of tone, and there's no voice behind it, as we said. So when we get to the plot line of like we're gonna cut the leg off a dog, you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like none of you guys have been established as actually crazy, you know?
Like in It's Always Sunny, they've done a lot of work of over the years after adding and paying attention and remembering who these characters are. Make it such that if Charlie were to suggest that out of desperation, you'd believe him. But there's none of that in this show. And also from the Seinfeld angle, when Seinfeld by the end of the episode turns one of its characters into a maniac publicly, they start off with something that's like, relatable, like some ugly human id thing that like we all have. And then they just make it bigger and then bigger and bigger and bigger until it's a boulder. You see it get there and you watch it roll down the hill. This is just, these people are varyingly the stupidest people that ever lived, very clever pop culture heads,
right?
Incredibly feral, like non-human people, average Joes. And So when suddenly Nassim is like, I hate dating stand-up comedians, is like, let's cut this fucking thing. Who are you to judge stand-up comics, bitch?
Right.
You're a
What is her job?
What is her job?
We don't even know what she does other than I guess they're committing at this point. It's like 2 weeks in a row where her subplot involves dating. So I guess it's like, I'm crazy girlfriend, but like, that's not like you can make a very long running sitcom musical about that, but you can't have one character be that in a TV show.
Right. Also, we don't really know if John or Motif are like working comics. Because
this is his job. John's job is working for Lou. I think
he works for
writing for TV. But
but I was reading something about the show, which will be revealed. But Jane is a personal trainer.
Oh.
We're 6 episodes in, and not that it's a big thing, but if you're taking time to do plots about how she's like Iranian, you could also take plots about like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know,
about how she's a self-hating Muslim. Like,
you could also just
all I know about
her job
is that she's down to fuck or not based on how good the person's outfit is, and she hates being Muslim. Those are the 2 things I've learned.
she hates being Muslim. If you dress well, you can sleep with her, but not if you're funny.
Yeah,
those are the 3. Yeah, those are the 3 qualities of any
perfect woman. The perfect woman. We just built her. Half-Pint presents the perfect
woman, and that's just the role he plays, and so that's why he was given that position.
Yeah, the show is like oddly clunky. I know what you guys are talking about with like Nassim's character being like, like self-hating Muslim kind of vibe, and being like, I'm gonna pretend to be Latina, and then like the black stuff that like is just obvious in the room with like the old white guy from the military that they're auditioning for. Like the racial tone of this, like to have like a leading black character in your cast and not ever like ask him, or for him to be like, what if we like didn't make me like, even in the earlier episodes, Abhishek, it's just like there's just always like weird plots like that where it's like he's just crazy. He doesn't know what the show Friends is.
He thought it was the news.
He thought it was the news. He's like, what is this, the news? It's okay, so is he stupid? Like, is that what
he's stupid? Yes. Which ones of them are stupid? How stupid are they? Tell me, please. They can all be stupid. It's allowed for them to all be stupid as hell.
The problem is John comedically is best used when he's being witty and dry and sarcastic.
Go fucking
So, and there's a universe where he could pull off, because Jerry Seinfeld is not a good actor, but it's fine because one, everyone else is B-movie 2 when, but it's held up because the rest of the cast very much is, and he's never really given anything broad to do. But they keep writing these things in this show where like John has to act scared at a military guy, or try to be reconciliatory between Lou's old improv partner and him. And it's like, sincerity isn't a good look on you, Jonathan. It just doesn't work.
Likability is a prism.
Yeah. Like Bo Burnham. Isn't that the next part? Isn't that the next part is like all the kids like Bo Burnham more?
The end of the song is likability is jail. Yeah, we're funny guys. I like how we all just have become defeated about 30 minutes into this conversation.
We did that. That's been every episode of this show.
Well, I mean, this is sort of inspiring because you can see perhaps the greatest living stand-up comedian be fucking like really shit the bed.
Right. And so I think a good framework for the following episodes is kind of just to say, it's like, okay, I've given up on the idea of this ever becoming competent. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I don't have any hopes for it. So what is the point of doing this? I think the point of doing this is, one, identify how it went wrong. It's like a true crime podcast, but for a failed television show. And 2, based off that, what can we learn from that? And so my thing is, I think it's because there's no voice to it, right? But we know Mulaney has a voice. And every so often there'll be a bit here where I'm like, that's a John bit. Or someone wrote it with his voice in mind and it lands. But I think there's the idea of like, there's different types of comedic voices, right? There's like a sketch voice, there's a stand-up voice. And I guess what this is proving is there's a sitcom voice, there's a TV show comedy writer's voice that people can have. And that apparently nobody on this show did.
No, not at all.
Or actually, I know that's not true because the writer of this episode went on to be a very successful sitcom writer. It started from the top. I think John just does not, and because he did not, none of the writers coming in and just having their way with each episode knew what to grasp onto, so they were just throwing something together.
I think that if you are trying to make a classically styled sitcom, you need to have at least a streak of everyman in you, and John has none of that. And that's not, that's why we love him. He's an alien man that exists out of time. But fucking, yeah, I mean, you can't have that fucking like Andy Griffith thing. People don't connect with it. We watch this and reject it because it's like AI. It's like uncanny.
Yeah, it's exactly like AI.
Almost, yeah, it's almost a show, but that's why it's so terrible.
I think I said this in a previous episode that what this most reminded me of was not Seinfeld, but Kyle Mooney's sitcom parodies that he did on SNL, where everyone was talking in a weird voice and just parodying things. But he's doing that as a bit, and this is doing it as an actual television show.
That's just what that's just the respect he gives other sitcoms. He loves them, and that's just what he thinks the Cosby Show. He thinks it was this.
Yeah. And I guess maybe, and that would be interesting. I kind of really want to see if we can get a writer for this show on and like talk to them, because I would love to know, like, was there a writer's room? Because by the time you get to episode 6, you gotta know it's not working. Or did they think it was all good, Did
they just work it out over chats on the one train?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this is in LA though.
No, they still worked it out on the one train.
Still worked it on the one train. Presuming it was bi-coastal.
Yeah.
All right, finish the plot so we can yell about the show in general.
Yeah.
So did we even talk about how John is they're looking after a dog, right? The Marine's dog, and then they lose the dog because Motif is trying to get the dog laid. It's just
off camera, by the way.
Off camera.
Sometimes they say something. It's like show, don't tell. Show Motif at the dog park trying to get the dog laid, because I don't want to watch John awkwardly audition for the USO. I'd rather watch Motif be like, "Go on, buddy, go fuck a dog," and then that's how that scene ends, and then the dog runs away, and he's like, "Oh no!" Like at least that has some familiar beat in it.
It's and then writing. It's this, so this happens, and then this happens.
Yeah. All the and then plot point movement happens in conversation because they can only be at Lou's game show set or the apartment or the horrible plane set. Those are the 3 sets.
They have no money. The more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking they had no money to make this show.
Yeah,
there was zero budget. So they lose the dog, but the dog is actually hanging out with Oscar in his apartment.
Yeah, wait. When Oscar gets the dog, is he gonna rape the dog?
Yeah. That was the. That was
that at all from this.
That wasn't the implication. I don't think that was the intention of the implication. But yes, I also got that sense.
No, what he's doing is he's being sweet. He's like, "Oh, there's a lost dog. I'm gonna take care of her a little bit." And what he does is he does a little drill thing. Where he's like, I'm gonna play catch with you. But it seems like, do you want some candy, little boy? It's like the exact same rhythm and tone. If you just take out likable Elliot Gould and put another old man, and you put a little boy there, it's plain rape.
Well, Elliot Gould also has some of the most, I'm not going to say funny, but like off the wall line deliveries in this show. Like they're like, I just don't know. I feel like he just wandered onto set one day. Like it's just so bizarre. It feels like he's reading the scripts for the first time every time. And he's just kind of throwing out punctuation and grammar like jazz. Like it's so strange what he's doing.
If he was sipping on absinthe the entire time, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I think he might have actually been stoned. Yeah, he's always the character's always high, and maybe also the actor.
He's a pro. He can.
So the thing is, in the Mulaney episode on You Made It Weird, John said he went to NBC. NBC changed the show, said no. Then he reworked it, pitched it to Fox, and Fox said yes. But he said the NBC show was supposed to be about how like your heroes are all flawed. And so you can see the core of that in this show by having Lou Cannon as like a flawed, like patriarch kind of person that John can look up to and open for and work for. And then you kind of have like, I don't want to say like the mom character, but you have like a feminine side to things, like the more thoughtful in Oscar, who's his neighbor. And then between these two men, you have John kind of, he has a problem with Lou. He goes to Oscar, he goes back to Lou. He has something going on with Oscar. Then he goes and learns something from Lou on accident. And then like, that's a better show than all these other characters. Seton Smith and Jane, honestly, you could have just had Motif be a womanizer, and then you have like a rotating women coming in kind of thing, because now Motif has nothing, and then the weirdness of Motif is lost on Andre. So Motif is almost the oddest man out of all, and then
he becomes the normal guy. He becomes the person that operating best in this world because like it's reacting well to him. He in this lobotomite world, he acts like a monster and succeeds. He's just a man that adapts.
Yeah.
Dresses like all right.
That's why he was kind of my favorite character this episode. I was like, you're kind of growing on me, Moti, because it makes zero sense what you're doing. But yeah, but I'm like, okay, cool. You want to be dumb and think Friends is the news and try to get dogs like laid? Like, all right, yeah, fine. I don't know what that means, but
you can get one character if you want to.
Yeah. So then Andre somehow, they think they've lost the dog, and then Andre somehow finds another dog that looks exactly like
the same kind of fucking
I forgot to mention this. The dog is 3-legged. He has lost a leg because of the war. And so
War Dog.
Isn't it crazy that War Horse is not based off a real horse? They just made that movie.
Have you seen the movie? Any of that? That horse would be dead every scene.
But who goes to a movie and be like, I guess Steven Spielberg. But I guess how do you be like, all right, so it's a horse, but Forrest Gump. Like, why? How is that a pitch? Anyways.
What do you mean? I don't want to see that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What are you talking about? It's so funny.
Well, you can't see it. Go War Horse. It exists.
If the movie wasn't like that, if the movie was more entertaining, if the movie had more Forrest Gump, it would be better. It would be great.
Right.
War Horse, wasn't it a play?
What?
How can it have been a play?
I remember I used to sit my little ass down and watch the Tonys, and War Horse was like a musical, and it was a big wicker horse. It was like a big wicker prop puppet horse, like the Lion King, and like they had it like running, and then there would be like a screen of like just Germans exploding in World War I or II or whatever.
Camp them, that.
I remember once I wrote this thing once in college, and I had a professor who was like, hey, talk to this friend of mine. He's a producer. I think he would like this. And I was like all excited. And I was like, oh, cool. And they showed it to him, and he was a theater producer. And it was like a very intricate period piece, like set in the 1600s. And he was like, yeah, I don't know how this would work on stage. And I'm like, neither do I. And so then we just kind of stared at each other for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, all right, goodbye forever then. And yeah.
Should have had a horse in it.
Should have had a horse in it. Should have had a horse in it that won World War II.
Dude,
is that what War Horse is about? I don't even know.
War Horse. He's like steals Hitler's apple, and then he's like on the plane, and he like bites.
When he starts, they're right.
Yeah, and he bites like the cord that's holding the bombs over Nagasaki, and like
right,
like
yeah. There's a world.
And he opens the Ark of the Covenant, and
yes.
Yeah, and his face melts off, and then he's the Ghost Rider's steed.
He's Ghost Horse.
Ghost Horse, dude. Our next project, Ghost Horse.
And then we can have a Ghost Dad tie-in, because Lord knows that is an IP that needs rebooting. Did you guys see this? They're rebooting Chappelle Show starring Chet Hanks.
No, they're not.
They're not doing that. But like,
you didn't get me, motherfucker. Look at my face. You didn't get me.
I just remember I wanted to say that at the beginning of this, and then I forgot to.
Yeah. You love lying. It's like your favorite thing. You love the sitcom Mulaney and lying to your friends.
Yes, I do. Equally, and they're equally good for their work.
Like this show, man. You probably don't have any.
Yeah, that would be such a funny last twist for the last episode to be like, man, I actually led this show. I wrote it. I'm John Mulaney. No, you would know that by now.
You take off your mask and you're the War Horse.
Yeah, I'm War Horse. I'm Horse. I am.
So written.
Are you kidding me? I am ketamine.
Whoa.
So then they're seriously debating cutting the leg off just this dog. Like, it's such a contrived situation. It's like, okay, we found another dog, but we have to cut. Like,
I can't buy that these people sincerely thought that for a second.
I thought you were going to say I can't buy that these people have sincerely met each other ever. But
we've all already said that.
Yeah. So then the Marine comes back and is like, "Where's my dog?" And then they find the dog, but because he's dressed like he's a civilian at a Margaritaville is the joke, I think. Jane breaks up with him anyways, or he breaks up with her, but Jane's like, I'm not into you anymore. And then John is like, wait, you can find out old USO people. Let me reunite Lou with the improv partner, who's Jerry Minor, who's another, very acclaimed sitcom actor, and I think was fine here. He was with the material he was given. He was okay.
It's a scene that makes sense and works. It's a scene that was set up and accomplished. Just so that was we have an expectation to it. Something happened. we know that Martin fucking regrets that Luke Cannon regrets like breaking his friendship by fucking see it. So that like that coming together, that's a television. That's why it's my favorite plot, because it's a thread.
It makes sense. Yeah, it's like a trackable storyline to it. Yeah. And so then it ends, and then John is like, oh, okay, fine, let's do USO, and I get to open for you. And then they're going to Kabul. But then also it's revealed that Jerry Miner's character, whatever his friend's name is the one opening for Lou. So why is John even going?
He thought he was opening for Lou.
Right, but now he's like, he's just going to be his assistant.
Right. I assumed he was Lou's assistant when I watched this.
He is Lou's assistant, but he wanted to open for Lou and get Lou to do the USO tour.
But also technically, everything that the show shows, he is basically Lou's personal assistant. But technically, he's a writer on the show and is a creative producer. But by any definition,
why not just make him the assistant? Because that makes you never show him writing television. You never show.
No.
And also writing the game show. Is he writing the questions? What is?
No. He's writing the bits that he says up top in like a little funny monologue.
Wait, he has a so it's a game show that is like a late night.
The game show is also they play with.
The game show that the idea that nothing happens. Also, there's a writer's room though for the game show. He's not the only one. It requires multiple writers.
Well, I mean, as a trivia show, I can buy that, right? Like it's
no, they're all comedy writers.
Wait, they have everyone in the right? Who do they have It's a trivia show, right? Is that what it is?
Yes. In a way, they play with it a lot. They're like, well, how does this show work? And they're like, I don't know how the rules work. Like they'll just like,
That's at least a bit where it's like, okay, this is, it's ridiculous. You're playing with it. It's like you're expanding the boundaries of the world. I think the best joke of the episode is when they have the little gag after he attacks someone and he goes, contestants of celebrities, you guessed it, stay with friends. Like that's funny. It's a little throwaway thing. I could see that on 30 Rock, So often I think this specifically about this show. So often something will happen. I'll be like, man, I wish that this was on 30 Rock. Like this has been good on 30 Rock, specifically 30 Rock. I feel like everyone on this show wished that they could have written on that.
No, yeah, I guess maybe that is the tone they're going for, but there's always
but it's also like it is still a multi-camera sitcom shot in front of a live audience.
That's true. It just inherently it's a different animal.
Yeah. And then so the closing thoughts, I guess. So then this episode just ends. It's weirdly pro-military. It seems like a sponsored post by fucking the Marines, who apparently needed Mulaney to shout them out. And at no point can I tell you why anyone did anything, why anyone said anything, what happened, what anything means. I don't know what the dream of this show is. What is the perceived idealized version of this show? It's not becoming clear to me.
The true impetus of the show is that John wanted to have a sitcom.
Yeah.
And he was not equipped to make it. And because were it only that, this would not be interesting at all or compelling. It's only compelling because John is a brilliant artist. That's really the only that's the that is just.
And it is kind of disappointing how boring of a failure this is, because it would be nice like to expect like a really like to see like a really big swing and it just not land, and like, but because it's by a really talented person, you're like there's this beauty in the failure, but there isn't here. It's like the difference between the Star Wars prequels and the Star Wars sequels. The sequels are kind of just like boring, but the prequels are like, I don't know, I wouldn't say they're good, but they're also just so you're like, most of it is about like political maneuvering and we're like,
fucking the space detective shit with space diners, like it's
right.
Fucking,
yeah. And this is unfortunately a Star Wars sequel. Yeah, it's like poetry.
It rhymes. I love George Lucas. Yeah. George Lucas should have been in this.
In the Mulaney Rewatch.
Yeah. He should have been like, okay, so what if it was more about trade agreements than it was about war horse? Star Wars needs a war horse, and then you cut to episode 9 when the horses are on the Star Destroyer. And you cut to the audience, and I just have a gun in my mouth, but it's Han Solo's gun. It's Han Solo's.
And you shoot first.
Like, who's gonna shoot?
Yeah. And Greedo's there, and he's like, "What am I doing here?"
What? That's how he talks? He talks like Motif. Motif is playing Greedo.
I was thinking more of like the Italian guy than like a black guy. What am I doing?
I don't hear the difference. Yo was originally from the Italian American community. That's where that works.
You're a big defender. You're like Italians were slaves too. You're always that.
Yeah. I'm that guy. I'm saying I'm always saying I'm not white. I'm Italian. I'm always saying that.
Right. For no reason though.
Yeah.
For
no reason.
You love pizza. You love the
pizza.
You're the Ninja Turtles of the Mulaney sitcom.
You're the white Sebastian Maniscalco.
The white Sebastian Maniscalco.
No, we all know Aditya is the white
Hannibal Buress. So that's how James used to bring me up on stage, and now the latest thing that a guy who I run shows with, Joey, he'll always bring me up on stage of, you've seen him on the Food Network, and so then I have to spend like 3 minutes up top being like, it's much weirder than you think it is and less interesting.
Me and my mom watched that together. We sat down and watched your episode where they just find you wandering Washington
in front
Square
of a
Park.
school. Yeah,
and they're like, "Where you like food?" And you're like, "Yeah, I like food."
Yeah. Yeah.
War horse? You guys ever heard of the war?
Hey, I like it when you kill them, when you get them all laughing about the fucking donut bit.
Yeah.
Give your son for a
that
donut.
Donut was disgusting.
It looked
really.
It was really bad. It was really bad. And Duff made it. That was Duff's dish.
Oh, I loved Duff, dude.
Duff,
as a
Duff
kid,
fucking shit the bed, dude.
Ace of Cakes. I used to sit down and just I used to sit my fat ass down and listen. Okay, when Duff was talking. I don't know, dude.
You were Ace of Cakes over Cake Boss? That's interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't a Cake Boss guy. I thought I knew he had darkness in him, and when the DOI video came out, I was like, it's like when you knew something was gonna happen.
Right. Cake Boss, I guess.
Let me tell my thing.
Sorry, go.
I'm doing Cake Boss bits on our Mulaney podcast.
We went on 10 minutes about Warhorse. I'm allowed to have 2 jokes about Cake Boss.
I just want to say that Joey used to bring me on stage. He's Colin Quinn's opener, and then I would just immediately have to walk that back. It was like mine was worse than yours because you were actually on the Food Network. I interviewed.
Well, I never heard. Why did you? Because you interviewed Colin Quinn.
I interviewed Colin Quinn in college, the day before he had a heart attack, and Joey would bring me on stage as his opener, and he's like, "Yeah, nobody really cares about the details." I'm like, they're gonna think I'm like a year into stand-up. Like, why would I be opening for one of like the great touring orators?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like you make up a credit to get into like a festival, not to like not when you're already about to walk on stage. Like they don't care.
So anyway, now I open for Cake Boss.
Now you open for Cake Boss. That would be. You could probably do that now. You can move back up.
I liked Ace of Cakes more than Cake Boss because Ace of Cakes was like they're not like family, but they have like tattoos and they're cool, like edgy. They're like the alt scene, and I'm more of like an alt guy. And like the main.
It's like Sons of Anarchy, but with cake.
Yeah, it's Sons of. I can't think of a cake thing that sounds like anarchy.
Pastry, almost.
What are we talking about at this point, guys? Warhorse, Cake Boss.
Yeah.
Are you Googling pastry things?
I'm trying to make sure. No, I think I didn't watch either of their shows, but I watched a show called Cake Wars, and I was trying to make sure.
Oh, I remember Cake Wars.
Cake Warhorse. Cake Warhorse. We made it, guys. That's Mulaney, dude. That's
Mulaney. Cake Warhorse.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Abhishek? Thanks for joining us on the show.
Let me see if there's any aphorisms. Okay, so in the middle of the night when I first watched this, and I was very upset. One of the notes I have is you can't just have situations. That's all I know. Like, in a sitcom, it's a character. It's a person experiencing an odd situation. It's not just the situation and then we're the one experiencing it. It's not fun.
Yeah, we're the ones in this. The sitcom is this right now.
Yes,
people watching Mulaney is the actual show. I don't think Stephen Sondheim once said a show is never done until you present to the audience because the audience is the last collaborator, and that is how I feel about Mulaney. Is the show is not done until this show is done.
I know that when this show is done, I'll never think about Mulaney again.
Yeah. What's interesting is that
the rest of it on your free time.
I watched a little bit of the next episode, and I was like, yeah, y'all leave that to the professionals next episode.
Yeah. Thank you. We take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. We are going to be. I don't think this is going to be controversial to say. I think James and I will be the world's foremost experts on this show by the time this is over. Probably already are, actually. But I'll hedge my bets until saying after it's over.
somebody had to do it. And it didn't have to be you guys, but you guys.
I'm glad it was.
I'm glad it was too. I'm glad to be here.
Sometimes there's a war, and that war
needs a horse.
Needs a horse.
Mulaney loves his horse bits.
He does. He likes horses. Maybe
two famous ones.
Yes, horse in the hospital.
Letting your strong leg makes me have confidence.
It's three. Yeah.
Three. You're right. Yes. Matty Healy says he kicked heroin from horse therapy, which I think was just a way of saying he did ketamine.
Yeah, that's a good bit. That's a good bit, man.
I'm so defeated.
Yeah,
that's the out.
It's not everything I wrote is.
It is funny how there's like 3 pages of this, and he had nothing to say. Like clearly, I have something to say, but also nothing. It's really interesting. It's a real weird. And here's the thing. I will say my opinion of John Mulaney as a person and as an artist and as a writer, it hasn't changed in either direction.
No, it hasn't changed.
It hasn't grown. It hasn't lessened because I didn't expect much of this show. But also, there's so little of him in this that it almost is irrelevant. It's almost just like a thing that's there, and it has no bearing on who he is as a creator or as a performer.
It's not like he went up there and embarrassed himself. He didn't go up there. Yes,
James,
this is the hardest. This is maybe one of the most difficult episodes because some of the episodes have been so bad it's funny to talk about. Right. This one's so bad and muddled that it almost speaks for itself in how flawed it is.
Yeah, you can show this to anyone, and it's just really disappointing that we're already halfway through the show's run. Like, there's just nothing that written by I mean, I don't know. You look at all of these creators and these writers, and you're like, what was going on here? You know.
What was Lorne Michaels thinking while producing this? Was he getting like dailies, watching the shows as they were coming up, being like, "John, this is bad." It's on Fox too. Fox.
I mean, NBC already said no, right? Like that's the thing that has this great relationship with him. Like they love him on SNL. They have Lorne Michaels as producer, and they were like, "No, we don't want this show." Like you, absolutely not.
That's stupid, dude.
What was the thing he said in the Cocaine GQ interview at the end of Baby J about the only thing I would change
is the audience. Yeah.
We agree. We would like to be changed.
Yeah.